For the record, you're a minute early. We started.
The binder.
Well, not even technically.
I've had that when I first started.
Oh, okay.
Good evening. I'm Shanna Cox, Chair of the Lewiston Planning Board. I welcome all here this evening and call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Yes, Roger Dupree.
Here.
Michael Marcotte.
Present.
Lucy Bisson here. Mark Roy.
Here.
Shanna Cox.
Here.
And Amy Smith, sorry.
Here.
Alex Pine.
Here.
Cynthia Burns.
Here.
And Zoe Lidstrom.
Here.
And for the record, city staff, we have Shelley Norton, Deputy Director, Jonathan Connor, Director, Craig Tebow, Land Use Planner, and Linda Tripp, Administrative Assistant.
It's a full house today.
Yes?
Do we have any adjustments to the agenda that need to be made?
No, I'm sorry, no, we don't.
And correspondence. We had some gifts when we arose.
Yes, so we do have public comment on the 1542 Main Street Heritage Hillside project, which included some comments from Public Works as well in response to the questions that an abutter had posed. And then I also have an adjusted staff review for the solar project. The change is an additional condition of approval that's being recommended based on decommissioning in the future of the project.
Thank you. All right, let's get started. Our first public hearing this evening is Michael Peavey, who has submitted an application for the creation of a 3-lot subdivision on 29.18 acres at 65 Crowley Road. Mr. Tebow, I believe this is yours.
Certainly. This project involves an approximately 29-acre lot, 65 Crowley Road, which is currently vacant. This parent lot has recently been split to create the second lot, 61 Crowley Road, a 3-acre lot, and permits have been issued for construction of a single-family home on that smaller lot. The applicant, the owner of 61 Crowley Road, wishes to further divide 61 Crowley Road roughly in half, creating a third lot, also for the purposes of a single-family home. The creation of this third lot triggers the state and local requirements for subdivision review and subsequently triggers the requirement for development review. 61 Crowley Road is located in the low-density residential zoning district. The use of the property for single-family homes on private septic systems is permitted in this district, provided that each lot has at least 40,000 square feet of lot size and 100 feet of street frontage. A portion of the property is also within the groundwater conservation overlay district. The proposed lot split will result in lots conforming with the zoning requirements and the additional overlay requirements. However, the overlay does not allow the sharing of a septic system by the two homes as originally planned, so each house will have its own septic. Further on, you'll see a sample motion language and a single condition of approval. That's all.
Thank you. Is there an applicant in the room today?
Yes.
Great. Thanks. We'll be right with you. Appreciate it. Any questions for staff from the board? Yes, please go ahead.
No, I just want to say for the record that I am the owner of the original 65 Crowley Road and transferred the 3-acre lot to Mr. Peavey, and so just wanted to say that for the record.
Thank you. I have a staff question that is less about this particular applicant and application, but more about the timing of the splitting of the lot. If 65 had been split, and it sounds like had recently been split to create the second lot, 61 Crowley Road is only being divided into 2 lots. And so what's the time frame between the initial split for us to have to consider it a subdivision?
I believe it's 5 years, so the creation of 3 lots within a 5-year period.
Thanks.
And this meets that.
Okay, great. Any other questions for staff? Did the applicant want to say anything?
No,
If so,
there's
you- No, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Any further discussion from the board or questions? If not, I'd be looking for a motion.
No, it's a public hearing.
Oh, right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike, did you just raise your hand though?
I was going to point out the same thing.
Okay, great. Well done, everyone. Then I'm going to open this for public comment. If you would like to speak, you'd go to the podium in the back. You'd say your name, your address, and you'd have up to 3 minutes. Everybody good? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Back to the board, Mike.
I'd like to make a motion.
Please do.
Make a motion that the application submitted by Michael Peavey for the creation of a 3-lot subdivision on 29.18 acres at 61 and 65 Crowley Road meets all the necessary standards contained in the zoning and land use code, including but not limited to Article 13, Section 4, approval criteria in Section 5, coordination with state subdivision law, and the approval be granted with the following conditions. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project with the following condition: prior to the issuance of any building permit for the proposed third lot shown as 1.402 acres in size and generally the southern half of 61 Crowley Road on the drawing partial boundary survey, the applicant shall provide the city with a copy of the recorded plat plan and deeds for both the existing lots, remaining land, and the land to be divided, shown as 1.598 acres and 1.402 acres in size respectively.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? Can you call the roll?
Roger Dupree.
Yes.
Michael Marcotte.
Yes.
Lucy Bisson, yes. Mark Roy.
Yes.
Shanna Cox.
Yes.
Amy Smith.
Yes.
Alex Pine.
Yes.
Congratulations. Next, we're going to move on to Labs Solar LLC, which has submitted an application for the development of a solar project on 4 acres at 745 Webster Road. Make sure you're using the updated staff memo. Does anyone from staff want to speak to
Sorry,
it?
it'll be,
It's okay.
Yeah, I can start.
Sure.
You ready?
Please do.
Okay. All right.
I wasn't sure who it was coming from.
All right. So this project is a 2.5-acre solar array that would be located on just over 4 acres of undeveloped land that fronts Webster Street and also Forrestal Street. There are no direct wetland impacts that would need to be mitigated. The panel heights are approximately 12.5 feet in height. There will be 0.05 acres of impervious area created. There will be a fence that will go around this project, enclosing it entirely. It's an agricultural style fence that you can see through. However, at the top of the plan facing Webster Street, there is a solid wooden fence to assist with buffering from the street. There are some existing trees as well, but that part of the fence will be solid. One of the items that staff had noted in our review is that historically we have asked for a decommissioning plan and a guarantee that's filed at the Registry of Deeds so that when the life expectancy, which I understand is about 30 years of projects like this, comes to pass, or if it's abandoned, that there would be some sort of money in place where the city could go in and remove the project if need be, as well as a requirement on the owner to do that. So that is part of the condition of approval. A few years back, DEP started regulating that, but their threshold is a 3-acre project, this falling slightly under it. We're looking to have that in place. Because of the type of project, it does require a conditional use permit as well as the development review. So just want to point out, making a motion for both conditional use permit and then review of the project. There were a couple of comments from Public Works that we were still working on up to this evenings. So that is part of the conditional, the conditions of approval recommended as well, is that those would be worked out with Public Works after the fact. Oh, and I'm sorry, we also had a note about the solid wood fence. Staff was wanting it to curve, for residents on Webster Street, wanting it to take the corner on the right side of the sheet, if you will. Craig will point it out. Thanks, Craig.
So right about there is where it's proposed to stop, and we would like it to continue an additional, is it 15 feet?
15 feet. yeah.
15 feet. So
Just to make that corner.
Is the applicant aware of that?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Thanks. Can I ask a quick process question? The conditions are noted for both motions, but is it just the second one that really needs them stated when the motion's made?
Yeah, I would say so.
Great. Questions, comments, discussion from the board? That's me.
In the past, we have asked that the fence be animal-friendly, little creatures can go through. Is that the kind of metal fence that's going to be around? I mean, I know the wooden fence won't. Why don't you come up and, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it's the same fence that we've required in other solar arrays.
Thank you, Lucy. My name's Henry Hess, representing the applicant this evening with Sebago Technics.
Henry, you are welcome to pull that closer so you don't.
Oh, it does move.
Yeah.
Terrific. Can you all hear me now? Yes. So yes, to answer your question, there is agricultural fencing that does have quite large gaps in it. I can pull that up to prevent small animal movement, or sorry, not prevent, to encourage small animal movement. Let me pull that up, get the gaps exactly right here. I believe they were a minimum of 7-inch gaps. Yes, they're minimum of, mesh shall be high tensile steel 4x4 inch fixed knot. So it does allow for small animal movement, and there is some provisions in terms of the solid fence type. Solid fence panels come in about standard 6-foot heights. We're looking to probably just raise that 12 inches off the bottom of the ground of the solid fence to continue to allow, even in the solid areas of fencing, although it's only partial, to allow movement of small critters.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for staff from the board? Zoe?
Either a question for staff or for Mr. Hess. Just wondering about the wetland impacts. I understand that it was stated that there were no direct wetland impacts, although it does look like there will be some removal of trees, if not necessarily stumping and grading happening. So could you speak to how that isn't contributing to what's considered direct wetland impacts?
Certainly. Direct wetland impacts require the removal of fill or the placement of the removal of fill from the wetland. So if you were to cut vegetation and then pull the stumps out, that would be direct impacts. Whereas this is really just clearing the larger trees and vegetation. It still allows vegetation to grow up, but you're not removing materials from the wetland soils there. So that's the difference between the indirect and the direct. One of which direct impacts regulated by the Army Corps. Indirect, we worked with DEP and the NRPA permit for indirect impacts there.
Thank you.
Others from the board? Roger.
Looking at the picture in one of your folders here, it looks like the area is pretty well forested. Is that going to be clear cut, or is that going to be partially cut, or what? How's that going to work?
That's a great question. We did put a limit of clearing line, essentially the canopy line or vegetation line around the edges of the plan. So in the areas of the solar array, there'll certainly be trees cut down. Specifically in the wetlands, there won't be any stumps removed or anything like that. No, just clearing the large tops of the trees, essentially to allow for solar access to the panels. And then anywhere outside of the fencing, outside of a small area to the east of the plan, all vegetation will remain trees, etc. But really, the area within the solar arrays where the tree clearing will happen.
So in relation to the 2 acres, how many do you estimate to be cut?
I would say you're close to about 3 total of the entire 4.08.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Alex?
Yeah, just, with all projects like this, you sort of wonder about developable land. I'm guessing this plot of land hasn't been developed in the past because of the pipeline that goes through it. I'm just curious about the sort of, maybe history on the plot. I don't know if we have any of that background.
I don't have that background, sorry.
Okay.
Any further questions for the applicant or staff from the board? Mr. Marcotte?
With regards to decommissioning, I was wondering what constitutes the guarantee for decommissioning? What shape would the guarantee take?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're asking me in terms of the 2
On
options
staff.
that are allowed?
Yeah.
Currently, we're working through that. I would imagine it'd be through the bond method, but
What method?
the bonded method, I believe there's 2 levels there, and one of which being a bonded method with a 2% annual percentage that we'll actually be taking
So there'd
advantage
be
of.
some financial fund, so that when the time comes, there'd be monies to take care of decommissioning.
Correct, and that's something we're planning to work through with staff and have them review that final decommissioning plan prior to building permit issuance.
Staff, any further detail or input on that?
I don't recall exactly what we require. I know there are different methods laid out in the ordinance for accomplishing that, like for a road bond, and we would follow a similar, so there's 3 or 4 different ways they could do that. So it could be like an insurance policy, it could be cash on, receipts, so forth. So there's different ways, and we would be working with them. They would put together a cost estimate for what the cost of decommissioning would be. Public Works would review that and, determine if it's appropriate, the value, and then we'd go from there.
Thank you. Anything else from the board? Okay, I'm going to open this up for a public hearing. If anyone's here to speak on this agenda item, you'd go to the podium. State your name. Seeing none, I'm going to close public hearing. Any further discussion from the board?
I'd like to make a motion.
Thanks.
I'd like to make a motion that the application submitted by Labs Solar LLC for a solar project at 745 Webster Street meets all the necessary standards for a conditional use permit contained in the Zoning and Land Use Code in Article 10, Section 3, Standards for Conditional Use Permits.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Will you call roll?
Roger Dupree.
No.
Michael Marcotte.
Can I ask another question at this point?
Sure, we can open it up for discussion. I missed that. I apologize.
I see that there are 2 motions to be made,
Yeah.
and I didn't hear the reading of the staff,
No, the
recommendation.
conditions go
Go to the
on the
second
second
one.
one. Yes.
Yeah,
because
I asked
Shanna
before
asked
we-
that earlier.
Any other discussion on this agenda item from the board before we call roll? My apologies. Okay.
Michael Marcotte.
Yes.
Lucy Bisson, yes. Mark Roy.
Yes.
Shanna Cox.
Yes.
Amy Smith.
Yes.
Alex Pine.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll make a second motion. Make a motion that the application submitted by Labs Solar LLC for a solar project at 745 Webster Street meets all the necessary criteria contained in the Zoning and Land Use Code, including but not limited to Article 13, Section 4, approval criteria, and that the approval be granted with the following conditions. 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, all comments from Public Works shall be addressed. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the plans shall be updated to extend the solid wood fence 15 feet to the southeast to reduce views from Webster Street. 3, prior to the issuance of a building permit, a post-construction stormwater performance guarantee in accordance with the Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 13, Section 15, shall be filed with the Registry of Deeds. 4, prior to the start of construction, a decommissioning agreement shall be filed with the Registry of Deeds, and provisions for a guarantee be provided for the cost of the decommissioning.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the second motion? Okay, call roll.
Roger Dupree.
No.
Michael Marcotte.
Yes.
Lucy Bisson, yes. Mark Roy.
Yes.
Shanna Cox.
Yes.
Amy Smith.
Yes.
Alex Pine.
Yes.
Staff would just like to ask for the record why Mr. Dupree was voting no, if he could just provide.
Sure. Roger, can you pull your microphone closer and offer any additional information on your vote?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Staff would like to know a little bit more behind your no vote.
Well, first of all, I don't agree with cutting trees down to make a solar array. Simple as that.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a second of all? Was there a second of all?
No.
Okay. Thanks. We're going to move to our third public hearing. Gerard and Joshua Morin have submitted a development review application for the development of 48 apartments on 7.5 acres at 1542 Main Street. Please note you did have some additional correspondence for this agenda item. Craig, I believe this is you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. The proposed project consists of a multifamily development, 48 units in 6 total structures at 1542 Main Street. The property is located in a highway business zone. This allows for multifamily housing. It's allowed use there. The existing property is vacant currently, and this will be a new development. The developers aim to begin construction in the fall of 2025 and have dwelling units ready for occupancy in late 2025 and early 2026. As far as traffic and parking, the estimated peak hour vehicle trips created will be under 100 and will not, as such, will not require that traffic movement permit and additional sort of further study. The developer is providing more than enough parking spaces. They're providing 78 parking spaces. A total of 53 parking spaces are required, so they're more than meeting that requirement as well. Utilities and stormwater. The project will connect to public sewer and water utilities on Main Street. Electric services will be provided by extending from the power pole on the east side of Main Street, then underground to transformers at each building. The project, again, the highway business zone, it does allow for or does set a maximum amount of impervious area. This project is staying under that impervious area of, I believe the maximum ratio is 75%. They are proposed a 21.6% ratio, so they are staying under that. The City of Lewiston, we have delegated review authority for projects of this size that create, delegated review authority from MDEP for issuing stormwater permits. That's anything that affects more than 1 acre of new impervious area. And we have already notified MDEP of our notification of application acceptance. So we need to hear back from them. Landscaping, buffering, and open space. Under the citywide design guidelines, dumpsters and service areas must be screened. You'll see on the plan, I believe there are 2 proposed dumpsters, and those will be screened according to the design standards. As a residential project, the proposed dwelling units will not require additional buffering from the surrounding properties, so they're okay with that. I believe they are providing a fence, which we are pleased to see. 4 street trees are to be planted along the frontage in compliance with Article 13, Section 4Q landscaping. In addition, the existing maple trees on Main Street shall remain to provide further landscaping. Each unit includes a 60-square-foot deck, which satisfies the amenity area requirements of Article 13. So they're addressing the buffering requirements, the landscaping requirements, and the amenity space requirements. Those have been met. You will see, so we have staff did an initial review of the project. Initial comments included requests for more details on the turning radii for emergency vehicles, clarifications on landscaping, lighting, and buffering, and requests for more details on stormwater management. These have all been addressed, with the remaining comments we have as conditions of approval. You'll see that there are 6 conditions of approval that staff have recommended, and a sample motion language.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion for staff? Is the applicant with us?
Yes.
Would you like? You're welcome to come up. If you'd like to speak, you're welcome to have the opportunity to. You can sit there and then you would introduce yourself.
Thank you. Michael Barnes with Mainland Development Consultants. I'm the design engineer on the project, and the applicant's also here, Gerard and Joshua Morin. And we're happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant from the board? Zoe?
I do have a question. I see in the section 2, the project narrative, that the site does not include any wetlands. However, it does, from what I could see in looking on the MDIF&W beginning with Habitat Viewer, that back corner does look like it is very near a national wetlands inventory wetland. So I'm just wondering, was a delineation done or anything to ascertain that this doesn't overlap with that wetland?
Yeah, that's correct. There's a isolated area of wetland that clips the left-hand corner, kind of that triangle. You can see the
Welcome to use the mouse and point it out to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This mic works too?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a wetland that's down in this area that, at least that shows up on some of the NWI mapping. We didn't do a wetland delineation because all of the project site and the areas that will be disturbing earth have previously been disturbed. So there's no existing wetlands that are near the work that we're doing. But yes, there's a little bit of wetland in this left hand, according to the National Wetland Inventory, which is based on aerial image and vegetation types.
Okay, but it sounds like the entire project area that you're proposing is on previously disturbed area.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, I'm going to open it up to public comment. If you're here to speak on this agenda item, you'd find your way to the podium and state your name and address. Seeing no, wait. Nope. Yes? Seeing none. Last call. I'm going to close public comment. Bring it back to the board. Any further discussion from the board?
I like your timeline is what I'd like to say. If you're going to be starting in the end of this year and finish the, start in the fall and end by the end of the year, good luck. Especially with the supply chain as it is right now. But good for you.
You can just say thanks.
Yeah, the intention is to start construction as soon as possible and to finish as soon as possible.
Right. Fantastic. Fantastic. We need the housing.
Mr. Connor?
I just want to make sure that the board is fully understanding, in past conversations with the applicant, it's staff's understanding that this is going to be a phase build.
Okay.
Is that no longer correct?
That's correct. Well, the intention is to build buildings 1 and 2 first, followed by 3 and 4 and 5 and 6.
Thank you.
I didn't see any condition that requires us to have any timing around the phases. Are you just letting us know that they don't get excited about all 6 at once?
That's correct.
So that we don't come in and, I don't know, December of '25 and say, where are the rest?
That is correct.
You're just stating for the record. Yes. You're on to us. Okay. Thanks. If there's no further discussion from the board, I'd be seeking a motion. Alex, did you have a question?
Just a quick question. In terms of pedestrian facilities for this, it's basically between the units in the parking area. I mean, I know there's no pedestrian facilities on Main Street at this point, so.
That's correct.
Is there any plan for vegetation? It's sort of hard to tell from the aerial view in the northern corner of the property. It looks like, you're going to have a wooden fence between the neighbors in here. I'm assuming these buildings are going to be tall enough that they'll still be able to see them over that fence.
So there's a fairly substantial grade change in between these 2 homes.
Okay.
And the site. So there's, I don't know if it's 6 or 8 feet of grade differential.
Okay.
And then a 6-foot tall fence on top of that.
Got it.
And there's some trees, in the corner here that are, that we're not impacting with the development up at the top of the northern corner of the site. And then some trees that are being maintained in this corner.
Mm-hmm.
But the intention is for the fence to be that visual buffer in between these 2 lots and our
Got it.
project.
So basically accounting for about 12 feet of height.
That's correct.
How tall are the buildings going to be?
I believe it's in. So there's.
Map A2 had an elevation side view.
Yeah, there's some architectural plans that show elevations, but
It's on the flip
Is
side.
it 2 or 3 stories?
they are 2 stories.
2 stories, okay.
And the structures are 33 feet high.
33 feet high?
You like flip it
Okay,
over, they're back there.
all right.
See in the corner, it says.
Yep, thank you.
Do you have the elevation in that PDF that you could scroll
Yes.
through?
Oh, they're sideways though.
That's
Let me
okay.
see.
We'll have a good head turning moment.
I can probably
Is that helpful?
rotate that. Oh, now it's upside down.
There we go.
There you go.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Go ahead.
is there a vegetation plan for sort of all of that open space? Is it basically going to be left sort of as is, or is it going to be seeded with grass? Like, what's sort of the idea? Because there's a fair amount of
Field.
yeah. Is there a possibility for an amenity for the residents?
I believe the intention is to have a grassed area where, people can hang out and play and spend time.
Amy?
So just to verify, are these all going to be rental units?
That's my understanding.
Okay. And what's the mix? Do you know yet, the mix of all 2-bedroom? Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Roger?
Has any conclusion been made as far as the traffic with DOT?
Well, I believe that portion of Route 202 is in the city's purview. So it's a DOT road. Well, maybe you can speak to it.
This was the one with 55 peak per hour and well under the 100 that would,
Yeah, so Roger, what's your question about
Well, the thing is,
DOT?
I had relatives that lived across the street from this project many years ago, and I know they had a camper company there, and there was always a traffic problem with that. And I think the abutter has an issue with that as far as turning into their driveway and the amount of traffic and the speed of traffic going through there.
Yeah.
And I know Mr. Krasinski has, given his thoughts, but, is there going to be traffic signals or flashing lights? Or what's going to be proposed as far as trying to slow traffic down in that area?
At this point, there isn't anything proposed because it's an additional 55 trips in a peak hour. That doesn't typically warrant a review of possible mitigation. It's a low enough threshold that DOT doesn't feel that it's necessary to study it further. Certainly, the city could ask for DOT to look at lowering speed limits. The challenge with that is the way they do that is they study existing speeds, and then based on that, they determine whether the speed limit should be lowered. So it's not a great system for getting speed limits lowered. So I'm not sure that staff has any suggestions for how to really mitigate the existing traffic concerns people have.
And the through traffic on the site is inside, so there's one entrance and exit into the development, and the applicant hadn't requested any traffic calming or slowing measures on Main Street, is that correct?
Correct, yeah. There's also really good sight distances, John had said, so, there's a lot of visibility, even though people do speed and are distracted drivers, which is a problem.
For everyone, everywhere. Any other questions or comments from the board?
I'll make a motion.
Please.
I make a motion that the application submitted by Gerard M. and Joshua J. Morin for Heritage Hillside Apartments at 1,542 Main Street meets all the necessary criteria contained in the Zoning and Land Use Code, including but not limited to Article 13, Section 4, Approval Criteria, Section 5, Coordination with State Subdivision Law, and Section 8, Additional Standards for certain residential developments, and that approval be granted with the following conditions. 1. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall amend the site plan to indicate that all required street trees shall be a minimum of 8 feet and tall and 2.5-inch caliper at the time of planting. 2. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, all comments from Public Works shall be addressed. 3. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the city shall receive approval for their delegated review authority from MDEP. 4. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, a plat plan shall be filed with the Registry of Deeds. 5. Prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant's engineer shall certify that all improvements have been completed in accordance with the approved plans. 6. Prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the sewer impact fee for that building shall be paid.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Roger. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Roger Dupree?
Yes.
Michael Marcotte?
Yes.
Lucy Bisson, yes. Mark Roy?
Yes.
Shanna Cox?
Yes,
Amy Smith?
Yes.
Alex Pine?
Yes.
Great.
thanks.
Good luck. Looking forward to
Six
seeing that
by
going
December,
up.
right, guys? Good luck. Yeah, you better.
Okay.
Tomorrow's a good day for it.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're going to move on to other business. We're going to begin with continued review of the amendment to the Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 5, for changes to temporary on-site housing during construction of owner-occupied housing. And I'd like to say thanks, Shelley, for the red lines and for incorporating feedback from last time. Your memo was great. What would you like to start with?
Okay. So let's see, last time there were some concerns about,
Shelley, I'm so sorry, but
Yes.
I'm suffering from an ear infection, and if you could talk into the mic for me,
I
not
will
even the
do that.
recording, I'm just struggling to hear today.
okay, no worries.
Oh, that's so good.
Is
Thank
that
you.
better?
Yes.
Okay, we're
Yeah.
gonna blow you away.
Thank you.
So just a little recap of what happened last time. There was a concern that we ensure that only one temporary dwelling be placed on a lot at the same time. In looking at the existing language in Article 5, staff found that that already exists, so we don't need to try incorporating that into changes. The second discussion point was around the length of time for allowing the temporary housing and then length of time for any extensions. So there was also a request that staff look at what an average time is for building a single-family home currently in the city. So we did look at permits and talk to the building inspectors and also talked a little bit to some developers. So we have notes in here about that. But generally speaking, for somebody on the more do-it-yourself side, or, hiring their own, individual tradespeople and not having a general contractor who's really, driving all of that, it would be more along the lines of a year to construct, 9 months to a year. For someone who's got all the tradespeople on site and is building a number of houses at once, you're going to be more in like the 3-month time frame. So just to give a feel for that. So we felt that a year to complete was reasonable, and then potentially some extension beyond that for extenuating circumstances. There was also discussion about whether there should be some sort of relief valve in extenuating circumstances. So we did have some thoughts on that, and added some language around that. And then finally, there was discussion about whether to use the existing language about requiring hookup to electric service and to sewer or septic. And we provided some different language there. So I don't know if you guys want to kind of take that one at a time and go through the red lines and talk about if anyone has comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to start with the board directing any questions, since they had this over the weekend and instead of us reading it through. I do want to just note, it's a question, I guess, but in 1C, on the 5th line down, it looks like maybe you just missed a 180. Yeah. And I think that you probably, that's halfway into the 12 months that you're giving somebody, and it might be too soon to know that they need an extension, and so it felt off. Request is made before the expiration of the first 180 days. And given that 180 was what it was previously, and you're changing it to 12 months, you might want it to be like 30 days prior to the expiration or 60 days prior to the expiration, but it'd feel hard to know 6 months out if you need an extension, and 4 months out being too late seems silly. So I think it was just a typo, but.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have a preference for what it does say?
Yeah, so if we just say request is made before the expiration of the 12 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. That was my only comment. I really liked what you did in section G. Other questions or comments from the board on the language provided? Zoe?
This is very small. I think overall it's great, just one little punctuation thing in the interest of readability in section 1C, the second line. I think we need a comma after but not longer than, up to but not longer than 12 months.
The comma would be after longer than, comma, 12 months.
Yes.
Okay.
Great suggestion. Did anyone have a question on any of the items? Ms. Marcotte?
I'm probably going back to square one, but when this all began, what triggered this discussion to come to us? What was the need? Who proposed it?
Yeah, it came from staff, and I think really from code enforcement and from John. Did you want to jump in?
Yes, so we've had an uptick in folks that are trying to do this. Coming from a more rural city or town, thinking that they can just come and set up their camper on their own property that they purchased while they build, thinking that they're going to save some money, build their home, have a place to stay while they do that. It's happened in a few instances. We've looked at some other communities surrounding us that have this type of ordinance in place that allow folks to come and build while living in their camper. So that was the impetus behind the discussion and starting to relook at our ordinance for these folks.
Thank you. Great. Hearing nothing else, what action would you like to see from the board today?
Tonight, we're actually not looking for an action. Our intent is to have a public hearing when we bring this before you next time, that we bring it on the agenda, and have you take action at that point. But we were hoping to vet out any comments this time around so that is a quick action item.
That's great. Last call on this for staff before we see it next time in a public hearing. Okay, we're going to move on to other business B. The planning board initiating changes to the zoning and land use code, Article 12, Section 22, home occupations related to food preparation.
Yes. So we have home occupation criteria. We allow, just sort of as a background information, we allow home businesses with certain criteria if they meet certain performance standards. One of those businesses would be a home bakery or something that works with food. We are, through different discussions with the public and with staff, we've come to the sort of impression that our requirement that any business that works with food automatically be required to go to a Tier 2 home occupation, which would require a Board of Appeals application on top of the already existing licensing and home occupation permit, requirements. That those are a burden, and so we would like to look into that and prepare some language for you to review in the next coming meetings.
Super excited to see this being proposed because it's already really challenging to prepare food for commercial sale at home. There's a lot of licensing that needs to happen, and trust me, the licensing folks are going to be more detailed than our Board of Appeals would have the reason to be, and so I think this is a really great change. Questions or comments from the board? Alex?
Are there, just sort of while we're doing this, are there any other occupations that are listed in that Tier 2 category? Like, I don't know, I think one of the other home food businesses that's fairly easy to do is like jams and jellies. Is that listed in Tier 2 as well, or is that in Tier 1?
Anything that involves food. The food sales, handling, or processing is an automatic Tier 2. We've, in preparation of this memo and in sort of like looking forward, we've had discussions with the city, sanitarian health inspector, and he is much more well-versed on state licensing requirements. He does differentiate between, and I'm going to sort of try to get his language right, potentially hazardous or, non-potentially hazardous foods. And those would involve, in this case, baked goods. Potentially hazardous foods, and I'm sort of paraphrasing what he's told us, things like pickles, things that could, I don't know why I picked pickles, but things that could go bad, things that need refrigeration, things that could be hazardous.
Got it. And so the idea is like things that are hazardous will need refrigeration, which will make it a more intensive activity at the home, or like I guess I'm just trying to.
Any type of food preparation, value-added food preparation, preservation, baking, cooking, sautéing of any sort, both gets it to a 2 and requires food licensing from the state.
Yes. And so I guess what I'm wondering, so the tiers, that's to do with sort of the intensity of what we're doing here in terms of intensity of the activity for the home business.
That's right.
Okay. And so I guess what I'm trying to connect here is the level of intensity with the food risk seen by the city sanitarian. And I mean, like, it's perfectly fair as like a dividing line, but I guess in my mind, thinking about like jams and jellies, like sure that might be a more hazardous food product, but in terms of like what you're actually doing, you're taking some stuff, you're heating it up, you're cooling it down, you have shelf stable product that then you sell out of your house. And I guess I'm just wondering, from our perspective, not a food safety perspective, but just from our perspective in terms of land use, building use, and general, fitting in with a neighborhood, it seems sort of odd that we'd say like, well, this person wants to make jam in their kitchen, we're not going to let them do that. This person wants to make pies in their kitchen, which have a jelly fruit filling. That is a lower intensity activity, from like people showing up at the house and buying a product. I don't quite see it, but I wanted to put that on the floor for discussion. Like, are there other things that we could consider with this to make it easier for people to have food businesses outside the health and safety side of things? That's what I'm trying to make clear here.
Is that what this is about?
Can I just clarify that the language we're thinking about doing, at this point in time, you're not prohibited from doing the jams and jellies. You have to go to the Board of Appeals and you do the tier 2 process.
Yep.
The change would be to anything that doesn't require the extra state licensing that falls into that more hazardous category could be done as a home occupation 1. There's no Board of Appeals. We were thinking of following that state kind of cutoff, and if the state requires the more licensing, then we would require it to go to the Board of Appeals as the home occupation too. So it was kind of the dividing line we were picking, and the way Louis describes it, like if you're saying baking pies or you're baking breads or something, you can use things like eggs that would go bad in the cooking of it. But if you're making a cheesecake, that needs refrigeration. That's a different license type, and that's a different category.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how the state regulates things, and our thought was to have our home occupation kind of follow that tiering.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Amy and then Roger, and then Zoe.
Just to Alex's remark, this doesn't contemplate that they're actually selling goods out of their home.
Right, so for the home occupation 1, you have to be selling things kind of online or off-site, off-premise,
Yeah, actually, I think.
or by appointment only. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So home occupations, they don't allow for us to, or for a home business to address more than one customer at a time.
Yeah, so there'd be no parking area except for the people who live there and then one employee they're allowed to have. There would be no signs, no open hours where they're always open during a certain period of time and people can come and go. It would be like, hey, your wedding cake is done, pick it up at 10 o'clock, or the cupcakes for the kids, whatever is done, come pick it up. It would be by appointment.
Just a clarifying question, because I'm not sure if it's what Alex was also asking, but are you asking, Alex, if there are other home occupations that are not food-oriented that you'd like reviewed at the same time?
Partially. Yeah. So one part of the question is, are there other things that are maybe in tier 2 right now that should be brought down? I think to sort of the point that you raised earlier, Shanna, of like, it's great to see us making it easier for folks to have home-based food businesses, because it is a very difficult thing. I've looked at it personally. I guess, yeah, where I was going with this is like, if we can make it so that, sure, there's these other food businesses people could start, and maybe there's additional health requirements and things that the state requires, but if it's like one less thing they have to do with us at the city, when it comes down to it, like, I feel like conditional use permits are often around sort of the intensity of the activity, right? That's part of the intention behind
It
that.
wouldn't come to us, and it's not conditional use. I think it
it's
would go
not
to
a
Board of
conditional use
Appeals.
permit, yeah.
Okay. I was just reading here, requiring a conditional use permit and application to the Board of Appeals. So it might be
Oh.
just going to the Board of Appeals, sure, but like, just in general, if there were other food-based businesses that we could reduce the barrier for, that's what I was looking.
So I can read to you the home occupation to, the things that tip you into home occupation too.
Before you do that, this would start us initiating, you would bring us language, and that would be maybe the best time to see that language.
Yes.
That would be great,
Okay.
instead of you reading it out loud, because I think it will
Sounds
stick
good.
better when we're actually considering the things you're proposing. Roger, thanks for your patience.
Would there be an application of this to someone who makes food for donation to like a church or the vets or something like that?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I mean, if they're donating it, then if they have a business and they get a business license.
Well, this would
and
be a
sometimes
business. In other
they
words, they make it,
make a
you know, in their
donation,
home, and then
yeah.
they have either the DAV pick it up, or they have somebody from the church come over and stop by and pick it up, you know, for a Saturday bean supper or something like that.
So if their business is purely that, and they don't take money for anything, then I'm not sure it's a business.
So
But
it's
if they're
only an
taking money
application for something that does
sometimes,
retail.
then they're a business, and sometimes they could make donation and not take money. I would think is how we would treat that.
I mean, any business can make a donation at any time, but if somebody is only doing some cooking at home to give it away and they're
Yep.
not running a business, then this wouldn't apply because it's not a home occupation. They're just cooking for a lot of people, real nice like sports
I think
moms.
the only difference here would be the fact that it's, you know, something that's not for resale.
I think that is the deciding piece, though. Like, I think that's fundamentally what the licensing and our own regulations are about. It's not a regular activity. It's not for sale. Somebody can't sue.
I guess I'm not exactly sure what we're talking about, but if you have a home business and we require that you primarily are selling off-site or online, then you can be baking and taking it to the farmer's market or taking it to a store that's then going to sell your products, right? That's kind of the intent for the home occupation, is that you're doing it at home and you're taking it somewhere else to sell it.
If I might, just another way, I think what Roger maybe is asking is what type of ordinances might guide folks who don't have a business but regularly prepare food to donate? Is that what you're asking, Roger?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you bring us that information next time?
We will try.
Can you try? Can you bring us your research notes on how you tried?
Yes.
Great. Zoe, thanks for your patience.
I think maybe it's going to make sense to wait till we do have some more of that language in front of us, just trying to tease out like why home bakeries are falling out in a different way than other things. So I'll wait.
Okay. Feel free to whisper it on the way out so you can make sure it does, though. This is a good opportunity to make sure the thing you want to see next time is there. You can hold it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Mr. Roy.
Do we know why it currently has to go to the Board of Appeals, what the intent was and what the Board of Appeals looks at and asks whenever they're presented with this?
Yeah, we actually, and Craig can talk about this too, but a couple years ago, staff had identified that our home occupations were a really limited set of uses. And we had some individuals come forward that said, hey, you know, if I'm fixing up a car and I'm doing it like one at a time and I'm selling the car, I'd like to be able to do that out of my home, you know, and other types of businesses that people had come to us and asked about. We had sort of a, you know, the pandemic kind of really changed how people think about work and how they think about working at home. And so we had sort of a plethora of things that we had questions about and realized that our home occupation language, which had been on the books for some time, was really narrow in what it considered. And so we did this revamp a couple of years ago, staff did, with you, some of you, and with the council. And good intentions, and then after the fact, as you apply it, you realize that you missed the boat in a few spots. And so that's really kind of where we're coming back. We realized when we addressed food handling and preparation, we really were aggressive in some ways that are really have had the effect when staff has talked to someone who wants to do a small baking operation and they say, well, I have to go to the Board of Appeals and do this whole process. They just say, never mind. So that's the concern, is that it's something that is not probably in our mind requiring that level of scrutiny, but we didn't really realize it at the time.
And
Sorry. To Alex's earlier point, if there's any other boats you missed the last time you revamped it, can you bring them forward when you bring the food one?
Yeah, we'll do our best to try to identify those.
Thanks. Mr. Marcotte and then Alex.
A couple of years ago, maybe several years ago, a state legislator was opining over the fact that mother couldn't open a sewing home occupation. Two things there. Yes, we do. We are very limited in Lewiston as far as allowing home occupations and should open that up. I was hoping that that would be looked into, and as the director was speaking about, or somebody was speaking about, like fix-up cars and selling them, it reminded me that one of the side streets off of Lisbon Street going out of Lewiston, someone had lawn implements and stuff and ran afoul of zoning and land use. We should probably look into that as well, if that would be permissible. In that particular case, the person, I think, was selling these repaired, used implements right in front of the house. That's probably not something that we want, or maybe it is. And I was just curious, because I didn't see it in the memo, but would this be limited to certain zones or across the board?
Home occupations currently are allowed in all zones. It's really just dependent on, they're allowed in a dwelling, so wherever a dwelling can be.
Whatever zone includes dwellings.
Alex?
Yeah, so I guess just sort of piggybacking on Mark here, so I understand the process so I can think about it for our next discussion. So the idea is basically saying, okay, if someone's going to have a home occupation, we want them to have, some level of threshold that they're meeting from a regulatory standpoint to get that business off the ground. And so when they bring their application to the Board of Appeals, what is the board specifically looking for? Like, what does that process look like? Is it sort of like understanding what the impact will be on the neighborhood? Like, what are the actual like points that we're saying, okay, this will make the business a good fit and this will make the business a bad fit? I don't know if you can talk about that broadly. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the Board of Appeals, it looks at a conditional use permit criteria, which is the same criteria that you've looked at, actually, that you looked at today for the 745 Webster Solar. So, and in my experience, we have only done a home occupation tier 2 once so far that we've implemented this new ordinance, and it was for a car detailing and sales business on Randall Road. They reviewed the home occupation criteria, which is in Article 12, Section 23, and they reviewed the conditional use permit criteria. Some of their concerns naturally were for the abutting neighbors. They wanted to make sure that there were, some form of visual screening. They were worried about runoff into the soil with the sort of detailing of the cars, and really, I mean, again, it's the same criteria that you are familiar with the conditional use permit, and that's their purview.
Very much impact to the neighborhood, impact to traffic, impact to the environment. Mm-hmm. Those are the criteria that we're judging towards.
That the Board of Appeals currently.
We, the city.
Can we err on the side of you giving us extra information, and maybe we could see the list of home occupations in the ordinance next time, and it seems like there's appetite to review it in context. Thanks.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify conditional uses is Article 10, just for the record.
Thank you. We'll be sure you remember it next time for us. I would be looking for an action to, a motion to initiate.
I'll make a motion.
Please do.
Yeah. We're going to make a motion to initiate code amendments summarized in this memo with comments pursuant to Article 7, Section 4, and Article 17, Section 5.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Can we call roll?
Excuse me, Roger Dupree?
Yep.
Michael Marcotte?
Yes.
Lucy Bisson, yes. Mark Roy?
Yes.
Shanna Cox?
Yes.
Amy Smith?
Yes.
Alex Pine?
Yes.
Shelley?
Hi. I'd love to jump in and ask if the thing that you just initiated, or sorry, the changes to, to this, we anticipate that we will be making changes to the definitions as well at that time. We looked at our list of items that we wanted to correct in definitions, and there is a portion of the single-family dwelling definition that has an actual ratio of length to width, so it would prevent long, skinny houses. I think the original intent was to prevent houses from looking like mobile homes. The state has subsequently required us to allow mobile homes where we allow single-family homes. So staff would like you to consider initiating changes to Article 2 definitions for the definition of single-family dwelling, and that we would do that at the same time.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Can you make note of the motion as it should be worded?
We will.
Any further discussion? Mr. Marcotte?
The effect of this concept?
The effect would be that we would no longer regulate the length to width ratio of a single-family home. So if you wanted, for example, if somebody was able to build on a lot that was, say, only 40 feet wide, and they wanted to have a house that was 20 feet wide, but they wanted it to be quite long, right now they wouldn't be able to do that because of the ratio requirements. It's like a 4-to-1. So this would allow them to have more flexibility. There are some, we would have to change some of our frontage requirements, but I think we have some districts where a 25-foot lot is buildable. So if you wanted to build a home that was 12 feet wide, you'd be limited.
Build a shotgun house like in
You'd be limited to only 48 feet long. Or I mean, there's restrictions because of the ratio. This would allow somebody more flexibility in that.
And Shelley, what I heard you say is we might as well let someone build it, since they now can put a single-family mobile home on those same lots as required by the legislature.
Are you saying the item that we just approved or? I'm confused as to which item
This
this
is
is.
This is a
separate
second
from the
item.
home
This is a different
occupation.
one.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But
So-
she was asking us to make a similar motion to initiate language change for them to bring forward to
I
us.
thought, no, mine have had to do with the temporary housing,
No, not at all.
not the temporary housing.
No.
No, this is something
Because I was
different.
having a hard time thinking, okay, you can have temporary housing next to something that almost looks like temporary housing.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I probably could have given a better lead-in for that.
Alex?
Just a procedural thing. Because it is definitely different in spirit than the item that we just voted on, do we have to do an adjustment to the agenda to put it on the agenda to vote on it? Sorry.
I mean, we missed the adjustment to the agenda, and somebody can make a motion at any time throughout the course of the agenda, so I think that we're
Okay,
good.
so we're good. Okay.
And it was, last, except we're going to get to minutes real soon here. So that's the discussion on this item. Any further discussion? Can we call the roll?
Roger Dupree,
Yes.
Michael Marcotte,
Yes.
Lucy Bisson, yes. Mark Roy.
Yes.
Shanna Cox.
Yes.
Amy Smith,
Yes.
Alex Pine.
Yes.
Great. Motion passes. Two
Okay.
things initiated. Future's
Motion-
going to be fun.
Motion to adopt the minutes.
I
Sorry.
had some other business.
Other business, Mr. Marcotte.
Okay, with the two police facilities either vacated or soon to be vacated, I think the planning board should get ahead of the curve on this. Since we are the keepers of the comp plan and we do acquisitions and dispositions, what is the city doing to remarket or repurpose those two properties and hopefully for a taxable outcome?
We just had a 6-month extension for the main police building
Yeah.
for a project that I think we've seen.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the smaller little one.
Yeah, they came before us last year to get the contract for
We liked
it. Yeah, to have
a
an
lease.
option.
An option, yeah, to get an option on the police. It's for, what is it, a food co-op?
Yeah.
A grocery store.
Community
Food co-op,
market.
grocery store,
Food
as well as a
co-op
commercial kitchen.
kind of
Okay,
thing.
I'm starting to sense some memory.
Yeah,
Three
we had
guys.
that, and so they.
I don't know
they
that the
just-
little guy's got anything going.
Yeah, they just gave him another 6
Second
months. It was in the paper just
So that's a
last
lease,
week.
so the city continues to own?
It's an option. Well, no,
They're
they would
looking to
buy it. They would
The
buy
police
it.
department
Would
couldn't
buy it.
vacate it in
And be-
time and
and
had needed an
become taxable.
extension.
Yeah.
You could, yes.
Maybe, if it's not a, if it's not a nonprofit.
Maybe. And the other item, with all the activities that's going on at the Lewiston Mall, and hearing recently that Dr. Drew and his animals too are going to have to vacate, I'd like to know what the city is doing to try to keep him in this community, specifically since he draws 50,000 people to his zoo, or whatever it might be called. And I'm sure that a large segment of that 50,000 are not Lewiston residents, and therefore it's beneficial to our economy. These are the sort of things that could probably go up on the attraction board that's been vacant since it's been put up on the I-95. You go by and it's vacant. There were 2 hotels on the left side. One of them has been removed. Neither of them were very well presented. It was a faded color. You could hardly make out what the 2 were. And going by the other night, there's only one that's remaining on that board. But things like Dr. Drew's and his animals too would have been a great attraction to have up there because of the economic generation that it creates for Lewiston. And I'd like to know what we're doing to help him relocate in Lewiston.
I can speak to what I know, and I can speak to what I know the Economic Development Director has been doing. We have had some meetings with city staff. The Economic Development Department has been looking high and low and wide throughout the entire city to try to find a suitable building for the establishment. Different roadblocks, different requirements that the business requires are hindrance, but they are working diligently to try to help him find a new space. That's all I know, and I do know that they're working very hard on helping him the best they can.
Okay. Motion to accept the minutes of April 14th.
So moved.
Thank you.
Well, I did make the move.
Oh, you second.
That was the motion.
We're going to call you 1 and 2 there, though.
Yes.
That's great. We're
that's
going to
fine.
count it. Any other discussion on the minutes? Can we call the roll?
Roger Dupree?
Yes.
Michael Marcotte?
Yes.
Lucy Bisson, yes. Mark Roy?
Yes.
Shanna Cox?
Yes.
Amy Smith?
Yes.
Alex Pine?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. So moved. Have a lovely, beautiful night. You're out before 7. See you all on May 12th. And note that you have Memorial Day off. Enjoy that. The Memorial Day is the one after May 12th, which Memorial Day is a weird thing this year. I'm gonna butt heads with you. It's really early. You go, girl. You go.
I know, I was like, wow.
I saw you leaning down. I just
did my script drop.
Want me to get yours while I'm down here?
Away we go.
That's a big, it's huge.
That was a short meeting
I'm the
considering
boss.
three.
He goes, no, like, ah, it's fine.